Beulah men, I hope things are well. I want to give you a weekly challenge. PJ had talked about, Joshua. We're going through the story of Joshua, and he had talked about Joshua 4, where they crossed the River Jordan. And I always find that story interesting. Is that God parted the Red Sea with Moses holding his arm up, but this time around He told him to get in. Kind of stretched their faith a little bit, and they got in. The priest got in the water's parted, and they went through. And then Joshua told them to go back in. Told 12 men to go back in and get a rock, and it wasn't no little rock. I've read this thing many times and hadn't realized it. Said put it on your shoulders. So that was a big rock, and so they put that rock out, took it out of the river, out of the middle, and placed it. And in Joshua 4, verse 19. It says the people came out of the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they encamped at Gilgal on the east border of Jericho. And those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the people of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in times to come, what do these stones mean? Then you shall let your children know. Israel passed over the Jordan on dry ground, for the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan for you until you passed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which He dried up for us until we passed over, so that all the people of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. That word, so that you may know, I love finding that throughout the Old Testament, so that you may know the Lord. But the point of this little story right here is that we're supposed to pass down what God's done in our lives. And if you look right here, it says when children ask their fathers. As fathers of children, how many of y'all are passing down stories of what God has done in your life or has done in your life in the past to your children? And you just basically let it just sit there. Again, it's our job to teach our kids. I've got a prayer journal right here. I know journals ain't very manly, but I've got prayers in there where I show that God has answered them by circling them. And one day I hope when I'm dead and gone, my kids look back through there and see that, hey, God answered my dad's prayer. My dad was praying over me, or God did this in my dad's life. But it's my job as fathers to pass down the stories of how God's mighty hand has been shown to me. And so that's my challenge this week, guys, is too long have our men sat on our tails and basically said, hey, it's the church's job to go and teach children about Jesus. As long as I get my kids to church, I'm good. That's wrong. That is a lie from Satan. Us as fathers should be teaching our kids what it means to be a follower of Christ. We need to be telling them how God moved. When God moves, tell the family. A lot of times we know our wives and we talk with our wives and we see that God moved there, but we don't ever tell our kids. Now, I'm guilty of that. Tell your kids how God has moved in your life, and it will be passed down for generations. These stones were big stones. This is a generational thing right here, and you go back and you look, and God's name will be glorified. If you go back to Joshua 2, where the Israelite or the two spies go into Rahab. She said, before the men lay down, she came up on the roof and said to them, I know that the Lord has given you the land, and that the fear of you has fallen upon us and all the inhabitants of the land. For we have heard how the Lord dried up the waters of the Red Sea before you when you came out of Egypt. That was 40 years before they ever stepped foot in this thing, and God's name has already been proclaimed out. So God's name is going to get proclaimed out, but again, it is our jobs as fathers to do the proclaiming. So that's it, man. Looking forward to hopefully getting back together with everyone over the next few weeks. And just stay, as PJ said, hold the line, guys, but it's time to get going. Have a good weekend.